Hi guys, Andre Hodge here, Servant of Truth once more, offering my next installment of the Multidimensional Method to the 3D Madness, which I hope you've gained a lot from in the previous offerings. The purpose of me releasing these is filling a gap, what I consider a massive gap relative to the understanding and appreciation of what is going on relative to what the majority, even in the spiritual community and the people that have sought me out, have. A lot of this stuff has come via very, very hard and long, thorough experiences, which by me sharing them, my intent is to accelerate you, to integrate the data that you need to accelerate your perceptions, to fulfill whatever you may be here to fulfill. The majority of people enjoy an experience here, and that's absolutely fine. My attitude is there's something really big going on, massive, and to be here it means you're the best of the best in the universe. Andrew said we're the best of the best in 25 million universal generations. So if you're having challenges and finding it difficult and struggling to maintain yourself, just honor yourself for that, just being here. But being here with awareness, it's such a privilege in the universe. So the key is, what do you want to do here? Imagine how many lifetimes you've gone through to just be here, to get to this point in our world with technology that negates the geographical limits of, say, the incarnation grid that's been working here, that's very embedded, and it's a very it's a structure that's very established, and we're coming in, entertaining all the rules of reality, trying to reverse engineer everything to get up to speed and then fulfill our purpose. So if you're actually aware of that and you're actually contributing and you're able to hold yourself in the reality where, as I've said in the previous videos, there's a really incredible structure of resistance to anything really beyond the 3D 5 sense reality that the narrative and the media and all that sort of entertain, and they do so in a way to plant a perspective in our minds that we actually engage our placebo and we co-create with it. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate all those things. I also appreciate that once you go through it all and you reverse engineer everything, there's a respect of the free will no matter what. So we still get to operate here, and on a very high level, the majority here actually want resolution, and they want to be free of all their obligations here and their traps and stuff like that. So my attitude is, everyone's going to hate us, but we're going to be the ones that the most of the people rely on to sort all this shit out, alright? So if you're having challenges in life because you're willing to invest in something that is going on and you know it, and you can observe all the stuff going on to people, I honor you for that, and I honor you for finding me. And if you find something valuable in me and it helps you accelerate and hold your space and do whatever you're here to do, then I thank you for that as well. There's a lot of people out there that offer a lot of crap that we have to all go through and dig for the nuggets of wisdom and stuff like that. So my intent here is to offer you, the concentration of that wisdom through my experience, which has been a part of the purpose I've laid in of everything I've offered, to help you discern me and use an empathic overlay of me and gain the wisdom from my experience into you, so you don't have to actually experience everything and get up to speed. Because a lot of this stuff has taken me 10 years to reverse engineer, and a lot of experience and a lot of messed up shit which I've offered, and there's a purpose for that, to be thorough and to know it. It's a bit like, I don't know if I've mentioned it, the difference between paper trading and actually trading with money, because the physical trading with money, it activates all the DNA codes relative to the money grid, and that's why I've been saying, talking money and energy and the fabric of our reality and stuff, you have to appreciate that. So hearing someone's experience and navigating through it, two different things, but the way I speak is what I would have required from someone else to give me the data points to tune into to integrate it, so I don't have to. So I hope that is understood, and I'm speaking quite basically at a level of the audience that is ready for anyone, but these concepts are extremely complicated to implement, and one of my skills is being a translator droid. So in my IT days, one of my skills was relating to the level where the client was at, like high level, IT geek level, of understanding the intricacies of all the complex sort of interactions going on and all the variables, but relaying it to the where the audience were. All right. So this is the next release in my Multidimensional Method to the 3D Madness theme that I've been offering over the last couple months. In this particular instance, what I want to do is relate to the soul level of things going on. So what I call this is the soul level appreciation variable. And while the reason why I call it a variable is the soul level things are absolutely a vital component to comprehend and have in your components of your algorithm of perception going on all the time. Just because we don't see it, we're conditioned not to, such as, most religions don't accept anything beyond this one life. There's the fear of mortality and stuff like that in the 3D. There's a couple of religions like Buddhism and Hinduism, I think, that do incorporate this extra layer of things going on. But for the most part, the majority of humanity don't comprehend that there's anything more than this life, which, to me, it's a self-imposed variable of data that limits our appreciation of everything going on and accepting the bigger level of things, because my attitude still is this is all about karma resolution for the universe here. Right? We're all here, we're all in our DNA skin suits, like our souls on a different level are in the DNA, which is basically what I want to get into in this one. But my purpose for getting into this is what I want to do at some future point is actually talk about two things. One being some really, really, what I think are amazing healing experiences that I went through. But the thing was, and the reason why I've offered all my sort of timeline is to give you a picture of me as an individual and my development over those years. It's been 10 years or whatever, 12, 15 years, and of my awareness, all right? But throughout all those periods, there were instances where, from my perspective, in the 3D 5 sense, it was really random that people found me, all right? And from my level awareness, I thought, who am I to help these people? Who am I to be the one that they seek out and stuff like that? But when you appreciate the soul level of things, which is not limited by the 3D Roman time, all right, which is a program, people might have contracts, or at the higher level, our higher selves and soul level of things have already planned this or know how to find us. It doesn't matter where you're at, because say I know, for instance, in my energy field and my DNA, I've got the codes to help a lot of people, and there's a soul level of subconscious triggering that brings out your potential. So when you meet these special people, I found that I've just had the tools to be able to do whatever I've done that bring about the resolution that was meant to be, even though I probably didn't even know what I was doing, right? So I feel on the soul level of things that's working. Okay. The other thing is I want to actually talk about the incarnation more, which is a major, major thing that very, very few people can even comprehend. Right? I have it as a default attribute in my perception and pattern recognition, and it's always there as a foundational awareness component in me. But I know through talking to people, the frequency of their voice, just the overall algorithm I get with the vast majority of people, they can't comprehend it. They're not even aware of it going on and stuff. The comprehension of that, the whole incarnation process is mechanicalized, and sort of a major component that we've actually had to evade to get here and to be aware, to be into these things, is seldom even contemplated, right? That a level that we aren't told and comprehend is all mechanicalized and has been for a long time. So one of my attitudes of being here, it's like an incarnation D-Day. So if you go to June 1944 and World War II, when the Allies were going into Europe with the very, very established German sort of side of things, there was a really awesome series in 2002, I think, called The Band of Brothers, which was all about Easy Company, the 82nd Airborne that went in and parachuted into behind enemy lines to set up for that D-Day landing. The metaphor, and I've used it in my Conscious Explorer video series, is that's a metaphor of what it's actually like to actually incarnating into Earth, alright? You see all the structures, all the medicine, all the education, all the banking, all the governments, all the religion. It's been there, you know, these fortifications are established that we're born into, and we go through, and then we have perhaps an awakening or trauma or all sorts of stuff like that that bring about what we're here now, to be into these things in the reality despite everything going on. So what I'm wanting to do is offer a teaching on the soul level component of things, which I think is absolutely paramount to your own pattern recognition and appreciation of everything going on. I'm going to talk about some things from my perspective of things, and they might be challenging for you, but I invite you to go back and look at the Contrarian View video that I released a month or so ago, one of the early parts of this Multidimensional Method to the 3D Madness series I've offered, and challenge you of what you know, and use the Contrarian View as entertaining different concepts. You don't have to, you know, drop everything you know and accept what I say, but just have it as a variable in a default back program of, yeah, now that I've got that data, I'm recalibrating and I can see that, and I can drop something I had, a belief based on what I thought was true and all that sort of stuff, and have the courage to exercise those muscles, alright? Engaging new perspectives based on new data, you know, changing what you assumed and add new data to it and expand yourself, you know, infinite potential, who knows, you know, that might be the puzzle piece that you required to see beyond what you presently see to access. I'll give you the diagram. This is the infinite potential image that I drew. Just imagine this, the self-imposed arrows are a belief system that you are accepted as being true, when you need to just get beyond that for these potentials that lie beyond that, right? So the soul level variable of appreciation. I'll just show you another diagram. So this is what I showed last time, alright? And it's the 3D 5 sense and what we accept and the vastness of what is. So if I just twist it around, so that's the iceberg, alright? But maybe see it like this. So the vastness of what is in the iceberg out there, way beyond the 3D 5 sense, alright? So say the soul level of things is definitely way out there, alright? So if I show you the other image about the 3D 5 sense societal narrative image that I've shown many times before. So this is where, you know, the accepted norms are ticked in the 3D 5 sense with the self-imposed limits and society-imposed belief systems and structure in order to maintain and create the narrative that the majority of humanity entertain, to manifest the reality based on the unaware co-creative placebo power that we all have, right? Which manufactures the reality that we live in. So it's employing our energy in a creative force. So this this unaccepted resistance sort of variable, I would place the soul level things in there. But again, the soul level of things is so vast and so widespread, and so many people have had experiences, it isn't actually resisted too much. And I wouldn't even use the word resistance. It's just a variable out there that it's up to us to actually consciously choose to entertain it. So I'm inviting you to do that here, alright? Because I'm going to talk about many of my own experiences, my own journey to accept this sort of component in my algorithm of perception. So I'll show you another drawing. This is where I see the soul level of things and a bit of the reality. It's quite simple, but my aim is to get to the point. So this is sort of a simple image that I sort of see the soul level of things. That cloud up below my nose is, say you're on the soul level, non-physical, and there's an arrow going through to the body down here, right? The triangle is, say, domination control, and that little box that it's pointing to is the soul contract that's not by your choice, and that little path that the soul level arrow goes through, I'm using is the birthing process, right? That's where our wiping goes on, and the fine print can get inserted into us, okay? So ideally this is an ideal sort of incarnation, and the other little things around the main one, which I'm saying is you, is, say, our soul family and allies and all that sort of stuff, right? But the way the incarnation grid has worked for a very long time is it's actually potentially identified us at that barrier level, right, below the soul and the domination control, where the system is mechanicalized, and it might put us over here, alright? Say, for instance, the example I use is maybe you're a divine, feminine, very powerful being that meant to, say, be put into America or England or Australia and stuff, and where the culture is more conducive, say, the last couple hundred years, even though, you know, you want to get into the details of that, fine. But say you're meant to be put in a Western culture where there is the potential of having some sort of powerful existence, but maybe you actually get put over, say, for instance, in Saudi Arabia, and where the feminine is very suppressed compared to the West. So that's the way the incarnation grid has sort of worked for a very long time. It's derailed our intent on the soul level to set us up for failure, and also identify us as a potential of threat to the system, and then it puts us in what our non-original intent was, right? So that's sort of what's been going on for a very long time. And if you look at only the last couple of decades, we've actually had the internet, which circumvents the geographical limitations, you know, the weaponization of that incarnation. So we, despite how we may not be in the body and the soul family and the family and all that, with our allies all around us, there is a way to circumvent that, which is the first time in thousands of years, alright? So you can see things like social media and all that sort of stuff where they're actually created because, you know, there's an understanding there's going to be a soul longing to connect with our allies, even though the system is the way it is. And so those sort of systems are being created to corral us into identifying it and all that sort of stuff. And one example of how I know, I sort of sense that, say, for instance, Facebook many years ago, there was a real push to actually delete your profile, delete your account. It was very, very supported in the spiritual community and alternate research community. A lot of people deleted their account, and what I feel is, for instance, in that example is Facebook. We're changing all the algorithms to limit the connection, and many people had accounts that they'd established for 10 years and they had connections with people they're probably never going to connect to. So there was a real, free will choose to limit you by accepting that, that insert into the reality of encouraging us to delete our profiles. You know what I mean? So they're just sort of examples that I'm wanting to get to the point to. And the incarnation war I want to offer, and what I might do is show you an image that I drew now, overlaying this so you don't see me, of something I drew many, many years ago when I actually had a really good visual representation of it. And it's quite complicated, but I feel I can really explain it very well, because all the Galactic Special Forces level work that I've done has required it to be a default understanding in me, alright? The reason why a lot of those missions and stuff revealed themselves to me, because I understand this soul level things very, very well, alright? So I hope this image is quite elegant in its assistance for you to understand and realize what's been going on. It's vastly more complicated than that, but this representation I hope assists you when I get into this. Alright? So the soul level variable appreciation, which is very, very important to understand. I hope this sort of intro has helped. It might be quite long, and if you've gotten to this point, well done. Most people won't explore very long. They hit their limit of what they can take and challenge and stuff like that. This is probably going to be quite challenging, and I invite you to explore the other side of what I'm sort of saying. Let go of what may not be serving you anymore and go into that next level of appreciation of things. I hope this soul level teaching will really, really accelerate and help you comprehend things, to have potentials revealed for you, because I know when I really accepted this level of things, a lot of what I say and the Galactic Special Forces things absolutely were revealed. This is a pre-requirement. Not a pre-requirement, but it's a variable that will aid in the appreciation of the mechanics of the reality. Alright? So, as I always do, I'm going to include many of my personal life experiences into this, because I went through a lot of stuff, and I won't go into as much detail as I have in the past, but I invite you to revisit a lot of those to actually get them to a default level of appreciation. The big trigger for me was relating to an ex-girlfriend I was living in Sydney with, and up until that point I now realize that I had a lot of these components of understanding. They were engaging, like empathy and tuning in and seeing the intent of people and stuff, but it wasn't focused like a blue flame. Michael Zone talked about the red flame of anger and the blue flame of anger, like an acetylene torch. When you are welding, when it's not focused, it's giving off a lot of soot and it's not very hot, the flame, but when you focus it, the right variables, then it becomes a blue flame and you can cut steel and there's no soot and it's very efficient. The awakening for me was going from like a red soot application of my talents to actually being very, very focused after it. And the key variable that kicked it all off was the suicidal attempts of my ex-girlfriend. And I realize in hindsight now that, there's two forms of suicide attack. There's ones that are serious and ones that are desperate, calling for help, that aren't really going to go through it, but just the sheer comprehension that I had to go do serious IT level work, 12, 14, 16 hour days, and then come home and she might not be there, was too much for me. I quit my job to go make sure the person I love was going to be alright. I felt like being the partner, it was on my watch. Life is more important than money, the well-being of people and stuff, which I thought everyone sort of go by, but it's very rare when it comes down to it. People are they won't compromise themselves. They get to a level and it's just like this schism that they can't compromise, and my attitude is going into the unknown is where the potentials are realized, and by in the tests of life, not in theory of doing it all, applying everything, that's the key, right? So this instance, what it did, it was my trigger. I feel it was a big soul level thing, like a contract that I showed you. So if I go back to that drawing, we have our own contracts as well, you know what I mean? But so it was a choice and agreement before to come in to be that red sort of unaware up until the coast was clear, and that experience was my trigger to focus, and it's been a roller coaster ride ever since. But that experience of death, the potential of someone I love, was too much for me. So it activated me, and then I realized, like, around the era of 2008, 2009, there was the last financial collapse. It was the last major event, like, before this virus, and I lost a lot of money in the stock market because I went from having a lot to not having much, and I had to reset all my plans and stuff like that in real time during the crisis. I made many mistakes, and if you make mistakes, there's nothing wrong with it. It's you realize you didn't have the data to make good decisions, and the idea of a mistake is you learn from it, you understand things better, and you don't make those mistakes again. So I went and reversed the money system, got into currency trading and all that sort of stuff. But the other thing I got into was realizing things like the Federal Reserve and stuff. There was so much I didn't know. So it was very exciting. I realized there was so much more. All right. I was interested in that part. So yeah, my ex was suicidal, and one of the first main things I came across going to Borders bookstores, there were huge bookstores that were amazing back then. You could buy a coffee and buy a pile of books, and I used to get a pile of 10 to 15 to 20 books and just devour them on the sections I wanted to learn, cross-referencing different teachers and all that sort of stuff with whatever I was interested in, currency trading, technical analysis of stocks, and the charts and stuff like that, and consciousness. And death was this thing I didn't understand, you know. I was curious about what would happen on the other side of my ex if she did go through with this, and, you know, there was a great mystery there. And what I found was there was huge sections on past life regression, near-death experiences and all that sort of stuff, and the one that stuck out for me that I've said many times is Danny Brinkley, Saved by the Light. And what he said there was he was a sniper in Vietnam back in North Carolina, having a break, 1974, before he went back, and he was on the phone, like the landline phones, and there was a storm, and there was a lightning strike, and it came through and it electrocuted him, and that shock gave him a near-death experience. He was out of body, like unconscious for 8 minutes, which is pretty phenomenal. But he went off and had this life review, and it wasn't some god or some judge or whatever. It was him reviewing his life up until that point, right? And what he saw, for instance, it all happened sort of all at once. So he felt all the angles of all the emotion relative to his experience, right? And the one main experience that I use as an example is he was a sniper in Vietnam, and he went and had to kill a North Vietnamese general, and he succeeded. But in that example of an experience, he saw it from all these different perspectives. He relived it from his perspective, but he also experienced it from the general being shot. So he experienced the death of that general and being shot. Not only that, he also felt the consequence on the life of his wife and children, because, you know, if you are familiar with Asian cultures, the father and the mother are very pivotal, and, you know, the North Vietnamese were very, very poor, and to lose the father was a massive thing, and it impacted all the lives. So the children didn't have a father and all that sort of stuff. So he felt the total loss of the entire life experience of those people, and it was massively shocking and devastating to know that he caused all the harm. All right. So long story short, get to the point, is when he came back with the data of the consequence, and he integrated massive change in his life. If you review his history and stuff, he would speak and stuff, but between then and when he was a main speaker, I can't remember how many, but he would go and help people cross over, like at their death. He would be there for them to assist them and say it was all okay, like tens of thousands. Maybe it was 10,000, maybe it was 20,000. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but for someone to actually choose change at such a significant level, from going to creating death to being there at the other side, and a lot of people don't want to be around people when they're close to death and stuff. It's too much having to face their own mortality and those sort of things, right? So, going to around people near their death is an extremely brave and courageous thing. And just his actions spoke massive volumes of the shift and confirming what he went through. So I found it fascinating, and what I did from that moment on, because my ex was very abusive of me and stuff. She never was grateful for me, and it was totally insane how she was to me. Alright? And I know, say I was going to that blue flame of activation, my presence was triggering her and I wasn't aware of it. I had a lot to understand about being a healer and all that sort of stuff, alright? So my presence was triggering her and it was coming on to me, and the normal reaction is to get into arguments and all that sort of stuff. But when I appreciated this book and his perspective, I integrated it, okay? Empathic investment and overlay of someone else's experience. And that shifted me to another level, and it caused all sorts of shit. But when you actually, it's very courageous to expand your actions relative to the impact on others. Most people don't. Most people can't. Like I've said in the past, most people just get to the point, say running on 30 or 40% of their life force. To entertain more variables requires a lot more investment of that energy, and they just don't have it in them to process. Alright, so most people are just in survival mode, particularly where you may be at the moment. The cost of living and the demands of living is raised, so people, a lot more energy is being invested in that, so they don't have it to be who they were. A lot of people are showing a lot of their truth in challenge. Alright, this is a lesson I learned as well, is the truth isn't revealed in comfort, the truth is revealed in challenge. So I've said what's happened to me and stuff like that. When the cold press of life is on, you better honor and do your truth. Otherwise, so if you interact with someone like me or the people I know, they won't tolerate it. You won't see them ever again and stuff, right? So yeah, I came across Danny and Brinkley not long after getting into this stuff, and I integrated new stuff. And 2008 and 2009 were very challenging, but for me, after with this scenario, my life was being destroyed, and I was being destroyed by the person I loved that I'd compromised my whole life for, and it didn't add up. So I had a break in 2009 for a couple of months, August, September I think it was, and in that time I discovered iodine, alright, because I was on this download phase of reading a book a day, you know what I mean, really crazy, watching documentaries and stuff, and YouTube back then was phenomenal. And I'm going to talk about cellular memory at another time. I've been meaning to do it, but the download phases are big early on in the awakening to integrate more data into your cellular memory to start the perception mechanics going, and perception ignition on a really high level. But so I came back to Adelaide and I was into all this stuff, and I learnt through say listening to radio shows and stuff like that, that there's this thing called past life regression where you can actually go and have an experience, right? So I went and did that a couple of times, and it was really amazing, and I highly recommend it, okay? And what happened to me, getting short because it's getting dark and stuff, is I had this past life regression and I experienced a death in the Middle Ages. I think it was around 1300 AD. And in that past life I was very high level monarch and stuff like that. And there was a lot of resistance to me because I was trying to do things for the people that were good, and that sort of structured society didn't give a shit about people. Right? What I experienced is I was poisoned, right? And I remember I was lying in I came into that past life and I was lying in bed. I had furs over the bed and there was a fire and stuff, and I was poisoned. And I remember, like, I was asked who was I poisoned by, and I could see it wasn't the name. I saw the image of a previous friend who in this lifetime I saw him relative to the answer. Alright, so working at that level and the hypnosis and stuff, it's symbolic and it's imagerial, if that's a word, but the question was asked and the image of that person that I previously knew came up, and he's the one that killed me via poison, because he was he was a very negative being in that structure that I was an opposition to his ascendancy. So I died and I experienced my death through the poison, and I remember it. And it's stuck with me ever since, because there's a misconception about death, and my experience of it was so transcending and liberating of the limits of the 3D. Okay, I'm 45 now and stuff, and many of us carry pains that we don't know, and that's one thing I've been aiming to resolve with my infinite potential healing. I know how to relieve people of their pains that are subconscious, because there's no relief in other ways, and what happens is they get suppressed, but there's, say, 10% of life force dedicated to pain suppression that we don't know, and when you relieve your pain you get that life force back, and you get the advantage of that return to you as a resource, right? So, but what I felt in this life is, I was in pain from the poison, and it was having a very negative effect on my body, and my soul left the body, and I was freed of all that pain and all that limit and stuff like that, and it was absolutely phenomenal, and I can still remember it. It's just so free, so loving, so blissful, right? And I realized death is nothing to be fearful of, it's actually freedom, okay? But the mortality thing and the limit of, the perception of our reality that, our culture in many parts of the world isn't open to those sort of things. A lot of fear can be imposed on that. But yeah, having that experience was very transformational, very liberating, and in many aspects I am excited about my death, even though I know I'm going to fear it when I'm in the mortality and the finality of it. But the empathic over time tuning into things, such as my previous release about the sanctuary state and sanctuary space, mortality is an aspect of our existence no matter what you think. So I've had sort of a experience of it, and I get it, alright? Most people won't, most people don't and stuff, and it's very courageous to go into a past life regression or anything like that. A lot of you may have actually had your own past life near-death experiences, like Danny and Brinkley. Fortunately, I haven't had that, but I've been hit a lot to actually contemplate that. But yeah, so that was a very foundational experience for me, and I feel very fortunate to have gone through that, to have that, but then what to do with it, right? But to see the lessons I've integrated over time and stuff like that. Because the other thing about death is someone that hasn't experienced it, because from a outsider that's never experienced those sort of things, that doesn't have the perception and stuff, there's a lot of stuff related to death in the narrative that really isn't accurate. Okay, so one thing I know related to death is, if I go back to that image, is the separation of the soul and the body are two different mechanical aspects of our existence. And what happens is, say if you have a fatal injury and stuff like that, and you might lose blood and stuff like that, and the mechanics of the body aren't conducive to maintaining the soul here, is there's a death process that goes on, and losing consciousness and stuff like that. So if you've had a bullet wound and stuff like that, and you might be in pain from the hit, alright? From someone that hasn't experienced death and doesn't get the soul level of things, when you tune into that, you think death is very painful and stuff, but there gets to a point where there is no pain. It's just the schism related to the soul leaving the body, and I highly recommend Bruce Lipton's work related to biology of belief. Recall that right, there's little antennas on our cells that are uniquely configured for the individual soul to be a match to the physical body. So if you see that all our cells, for that metaphor, have an antenna that connects to the soul, which is a vibration, or an energy sort of thing that's a unique signature to our soul, then what happens is, if the mechanics of the body start failing relative to an injury and stuff, then there's the inability for the body to maintain the soul on the physical level. Alright? So it looks very painful, but if you actually really see death and stuff like that, people are actually in very peaceful states. Alright? They've accepted the limit, the finality of their existence and stuff like that. There's this real authenticity that comes through that, when people are facing their mortality, their truth comes out and stuff like that. And my attitude of appreciating the death and the soul level things and stuff is, I think it's quite sad that a lot of people aren't courageous enough, or they have to wait until those really extreme moments to be that level of truthful with the people around them and stuff like that. And what I learnt through all this is, why wait for those moments, alright? Why not just be authentic and be truthful and speak your truth and love and want the best for everyone around you? And what happens if you are authentic? So I call myself servant of truth, because I'm not looking to compromise myself for an audience or anything like that and be inauthentic. I find it fascinating that movie stars and all that are revered in this world, and they're paid such a lot of money, because they're, from a financial aspect, that what they create by their efforts can generate a lot of money. So in that respect, yes, but society just adores these people that are fake. They're inauthentic. Inauthenticity is massively rewarded. So I just find that fascinating and stuff. And it's getting quite dark, so I'll try and be quick. The other thing is, and this might be controversial for you, is the vegan aspect of our society, alright? Because I think they don't tune in to what is actually going on the soul level, and they're tuning into the distortion of when the soul leaves the body and it looks painful and stuff. And I'm all about treating animals kindly and stuff like that. I'm not about, being sadistic to animals and creating harm and trauma and stuff. And there's potential of that energy to be in the body, absolutely. And the energy at the soul level, and that having that traumatic experience, is like, it's grid work. It's negative grid work on the earth, and I absolutely appreciate that. But my attitude is, if an animal has to go through all that shit just for its flesh to be on my table and stuff like that, I don't fear it, because I don't have the ability to transmute it. I honor the animal for that experience, because what I do, I connect to it on the soul level, and I send it gratitude for it nourishing my body for me to have the experience to say do the grid work and stuff like that. So I see it in a different way. I actually see it as a responsibility to sort of, honor my body and not contort to a belief system that isn't potentially accurate. Because what if an animal goes through all that shit and its whole purpose on the soul level is to give you the nourishment that you needed to have the experience and do the missions you were, and you took on a belief system that negated that, and that animal never got to fulfill its contract, so it has to go and recycle to form new agreements to elevate to the next level of soul. Alright? So yeah, I think there's a distortion in the reality about that, and people aren't tuning into the right thing. If exploring veganism and stuff is absolutely what your body needs and all that, no problem at all. Alright? I'm not saying to do this or anything. I'm offering some data to comprehend on a different level that maybe you haven't before. And if it is a match for you, that's cool, but don't project your beliefs on others when you might be violating their free will and the animal's soul development. Alright? So it's getting quite dark quite quick, and I want to end this, but I thank you for entertaining this. I might expand on it a bit more. If I trigger you, good. Alright? Employ that data and go on the other side, because maybe that's a confirmation of your potential. But thank you for exploring me. I encourage you to revisit the previous ones. I don't think people have done enough. You can go to YouTube, search Google for YouTube download and download them to MP3, put them on a phone and just listen to them in your dream time and stuff like that. There's a lot in these. I'm targeting them quite basic for the low level audience, but the concepts are actually very advanced to employ. So thank you for watching, thank you for exploring me, thank you for your support, and let's see what happens, guys. Cheers.